Atlantis American report in the New Hampshire bulletins provided that the Kentucky Valley School District and Winchester School District's lawsuit with the state of New Hampshire are the latest challenge to educational funding under the New Hampshire Constitution. The New Hampshire has Constitution that says, quote, "It shall be the duty of legislatures and magistrates in all future periods of this government to cherish the interest of literature and the sciences in all seminaries and public schools." Um, Claremont interpreted this provision as a command to the state to, quote, "provide education to all its citizens and to support all public schools," assigning the responsibility to fund a constitutionally adequate education to the legislature and the governor. The court observed that, quote, "Given the complexities of our society, the state's constitutional duty extends beyond mere reading, writing, and arithmetic to include broad educational opportunities needed in today's society to prepare our citizens for their roles, participants and competitors in the marketplace of ideas." This includes, it happens to not be cited by the New Hampshire Bulletin, but RSA 461 is the best interest of the child doctrine, which is a superlative. It's an actuarial and also a medical claim. Best means best. In New Hampshire, best means best. And just like it does in large amounts of America, when people say best, they mean best as in superlative. It's an actuarial claim where the argument here is how do you on an actuarial basis provide best interest of the child? Under RSA 461, which is a unfunded mandate. It's a mandate to parents without necessarily giving parents the tools. Where the states reserved these rights to control decisions on parenting, and including on education. And looking at these lawsuits, going all the way back to the Constitution, which is supposed to be settled law, but it is the issue that we have a unfunded mandate. And so, it's the duty of legislator and magistrates to educate folks on all the sciences, seminaries, and public school. I have a conflict of interest where I'm the dean of the Seminary Vane College of Knights, where we're trying to train folks for the next generation of healthcare careers right here in New Hampshire. It is an incredible undertaking, and there's an expense tied to it. But we gladly to work with the governor to bring tradition of success back to the seminary, the style of seminary that we're using as knights. That was some of the cooler forms of education that were around in the Bay Colony and before the McKinley presidency. There were seminaries which were not a narrow religious seminary, but a broad religious seminary that have a broad base view. Our starting on College of Knights in the Kent English tradition, where English is the language. Where we insist, looking at professions like medicine and like medical science, speak in plain English. Speaking in a archaic ancient language, it doesn't help patients. It doesn't make people healthy. They'll experiment to keeping patients in the dark on what their real conditions are. Has not gotten us anywhere as people, and so we note that there's a need for seminary education. It's qualitatively different, rather than challenging the state of New Hampshire in a frivolous lawsuit. We've simply challenged the local mayor's office to join us in recommissioning our local Tilden Seminary to become the Starting Vane College of Knights. Starting Vane was the fifth governor of the Bay Colony. He passed the first religious freedom law in the New World. He happened to found Harvard University. He wasn't perfect. He founded the Rhode Island colony. He also modernized the British Navy by having a vision of shapelessness, where he imagined a ship that didn't lag, didn't slag in the water. And that British Navy that he built is a navy that defeated the Dutch at sea, which is remarkable. I can see the Dutch had ruled the world for some 400 years, and he spontaneously beat them. as king. Where it's a little known story that he was a king, who was a knight, who was an elected fifth governor of the Bay Colony, and that tradition was incredibly normal in the 17th century. That tradition of heraldry was lost, partially due to the George Washington myth. Again, like as an editorial, George Washington is a thinly veiled myth where King George III tried to insert himself in our founding. If you look back, West Point was built by Lithuanian knights and kings. Those were the individuals that brought the artillery and brought the horses. There's Jonas the Great Batavian, who's also credited as Frederick William II, was in the United States of America, built West Point, brought knights, brought horses, literally, brought the cavalry. It's known in the historical record that he had 48,000 knights. He hardly needed to dig deep into his cavalry forces to win the American Revolution. He was originally buried at the U.S. Capitol, of which the U.S. Capitol crypt doesn't have a body in it. Again, King George III outlived Jonas Great Batavian by 23 years, which is that 23-year period is where the George Washington myth emerged. And George III reinvaded the United States in the War of 1812, where he had Jonas Great Batavian's body removed from the U.S. Capitol crypt and shipped back to Europe. That happens to be important because we have a history of knights and kings. That sort of chivalry is a different kind of law, where they're practicing natural law, chivalry law. We strongly believe in chivalry law and natural law at Seminary Vane College of Knights. We see that as a fundamental step forward, of which that was a tradition, not just in the Old English tradition of Seminary Vane, but in the continental tradition of Frederick William II of Prussia, who absolutely brought the Prussian cannons to the American Revolution. You can still see them at West Point. If you go on a tour of West Point, you'll see Prussian cannons, Prussian wheeled cannons, which again, some guy from Virginia didn't spontaneously start making cannons. Looking at the historical record, the Jamestown colony failed. The story of George Washington, if you believed it, would have to be that they had a functioning government in the state of Virginia, which they didn't. I have an ancestor, Edward Spalding, that went to the Jamestown colony and narrowly escaped, up to the Bay Colony, where he actually met Sir Vane. Like, two of my ancestors actually met each other in the Bay Colony. My family has to go way back in the United States. But again, for us, knighthood and chivalry were qualitative kinds of law. And so we teach, at Seminary Vane College of Knights, this new medical tradition, this new Hippocratic oath, the new medical science, the latest in how to treat our patients well. In the old Kent English tradition and straight English. And we see that as a better solution than, where, Kentucky Valley School District is suing the state of New Hampshire and saying, you need to educate us better. Well, you can propose a better way for that education to happen. As a, one-time Kentucky resident, where there's a lot of really good people there. But again, towns suing the state without proposing a solution is kind of a bummer. I know we can do better.